Hello everyone, welcome to another day here on the Daily Debate. I'm Nancy Sarah Barakat, your host for this evening, and very warm welcome. This is a program that brings you up to speed with an in-depth look at the news making headlines here in Egypt. And tonight the focus of our main discussion will be Yemen, and where the Houthi rebels have taken control of the capital Sana'a some 2 weeks ago. Today the Shiite militia said it would not cave in to what it termed threats after Yemen's Gulf neighbors urged the UN to act forcefully against its takeover. Yemen's Gulf neighbors on Saturday urged the international community to act forcefully over the deteriorating security situation in the Arabian Peninsula country, including possible military intervention. The United Nations Security Council is expected to adopt a resolution on Sunday urging the Houthis to step aside, release government officials and begin UN-brokered negotiations. Now, yesterday saw tens of thousands demonstrate in several cities against their rule as clashes between Houthis and Sunnis in the southern mountainous region claimed the lives of 26 people. Yesterday was also the second day of nationwide demonstrations against the Houthis in more than a week after their dissolution of parliament this month unraveled security and sent Western and Arab embassies packing. What does the future hold for the country? Is it on the brink of civil war, and does the unrest pose a threat to its neighbors? Those are some of the questions that I'll be posing to my guests later on in the hour. But as usual, there's another story making headlines here in Egypt, and tonight we're going to be taking a look at the status of the 21 Egyptians currently being kidnapped by Daesh militants in Libya. On Friday, Prime Minister Ibrahim Mohamed said their fate remains unknown. His comments follow the surfacing of photos showing them being taken hostage by Daesh terrorists. Now, also, the latest developments on that front say that Mohamed said that the Egyptian authorities are monitoring the situation minute by minute, heeding the instructions of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Premier Mohamed met with the families of the kidnapped who travelled from Upper Egypt's Minya Governorate early on Friday to protest what they felt was government inaction. Now, Mohamed also promised the families a monthly pension of 1,200 Egyptian pounds, free medical care and a place to stay in Cairo until the issue is resolved. And to tell us more, I'm being joined now over the phone by Ambassador Nabil Bedr, former assistant to the Foreign Minister. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Ambassador.
Oh, thank you very much.
Let me start off by asking you, obviously, the Egyptians who are currently being kidnapped in Libya were actually kidnapped back in December and January in 2 raids in the coastal city of Sirte. Why did it take so long for the government to react?
As a matter of fact, it doesn't take such a long time. It's simply a very complicated situation. In Libya, as you know, there's no central government at that juncture, and actually whatever steps have been adopted recently, including the steps adopted by the United Nations and the United Nations Special Envoy, who has already held some of the meetings, initial meetings, let me say, in Ghadames, are just on the brink of getting started, and the results are very unknown.
Right.
Even the results, if the results even will be declared later, still it is very hard to address a specific responsible organ which can take care of the issue. So, under the circumstances, let me say that the Egyptians have been kidnapped by a terrorist organization, Daesh, as you said. At the same time, all the details of that operation are quite secretive. The leaders of that operation as well are working underground, and certainly ways and means of getting to them is too or overcomplicated. Finally, they do represent a complicated organ of interest within Libya and outside Libya that looks to the hostage Egyptians as one of the organs of carrying pressure and of getting to their own ends. So I think that physically the most important thing is to gather correct information as much as we might, and to define with whom we are going to do the business of negotiation, if you like, And in so doing, it's really very complicated. So
This isn't, Ambassador Nabil, this isn't the first time that Egyptians have been targeted in Libya when it comes to these abductions. Why do you think that is?
Well, there's more than one dimension. One dimension is meant to send a message that, well, Egypt is against terrorism and is carrying the banner of anti-terrorist work,
Right.
as we know in Sinai and elsewhere. And, well, this is the result of what you're doing. In other words, that it's an open fight with Egypt at large and with the Egyptians as being residents in Libya because of that reason, that Egypt is really participating actively in its actions against terrorism in the light of its national security. Number two, that as we have seen in other examples, it's a way of trying to undermine that stand against terrorism at large, creating a degraded morale, raising suspects about the efficiency and the effectiveness of measures adopted against terrorism, and probably also trying to strike bargains, as we have seen in other places. So
Right.
it's really complicated.
So we've also heard news that Egypt has offered to evacuate its citizens from Libya. Do you know if there's any truth to that?
Well, we have tried to do that some few months ago, as you might remember, and there have been a passageway and certain arrangements done with the Tunisian government as well, and Egyptians have gone to the Tunisian borders and
Right.
were carried back at home, and there were warnings to Egyptians to avoid working in Libya under the circumstances right now. But as you know, not everyone is ready probably to take that step, and two, the evacuation itself, or letting the Egyptians go at one signal, is not an easy job.
Right.
But I think in terms of strategy, as you have indicated, yes, we think that Egypt is ready to take that step of evacuating Egyptians from Libya in continuity with what has been conducted before.
Okay, I thank you very much, Ambassador Nabil Badr, former assistant to the Foreign Minister, for your time and your insights. Ladies and gentlemen, the evening's first report is a recap, of the latest demonstrations and happenings in Yemen. Let's take a look.
Tens of thousands of Yemenis protested in several cities against the rule of Shiite Houthi movement as clashes between Houthis and Sunnis in a southern mountainous region left 26 dead. It was the second day of nationwide demonstrations against the Iranian-backed Houthis in less than a week after the dissolution of parliament this month unraveled security and sent Western and Arab embassies packing. According to medics, Houthi gunmen fired on protesters in the central town of Ib and wounded 4. Activists said that they were enraged by the death on Saturday of Salah al-Bashri, who they say was detained by gunmen as they broke up an anti-Houthi protest in Sana'a 2 weeks ago and was released to a hospital with signs of torture on his body on Thursday. There was no immediate comment from the Houthis. Yemen's upheaval has drawn international concern as it shares a long border with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It is also fighting one of the most formidable branches of Al-Qaeda with the help of U.S. drone strikes. Heavy clashes between Houthi fighters and Sunni tribesmen fighting alongside Al-Qaeda militants in the rugged southern province of Al-Baida on Saturday killed 16 Houthi rebels along with 10 Sunni tribesmen and militants. 2 weeks after the Houthis took formal control of the capital and continued an armed push southwards, Yemen appears to be barely functioning as a state. UN-backed negotiations on political settlement are continuing in Sana'a, but on Monday too, parties, Islah, a big opposition party that merges Islamists and tribal interests, and the smaller Nasserist organization walked out after saying they had received threats from the Houthi movement. Yemen, a deeply tribal country awash with weapons, has been riven by crisis since veteran strongman Ali Abdullah Saleh was forced from power in 2012 following a bloody year-long uprising against his rule. UN envoy Jamal Ben Omar has warned Yemen is at crossroads and urged political leaders to take up their responsibilities and achieve consensus as he battled for a negotiated solution. Last Friday, the militia dissolved parliament and created a presidential council in a move it said was designed to fill a power vacuum after Western-backed President Abdrabbu Mansour Hadi and Prime Minister Khalid Baha resigned last month.
A new Suez Canal. A national project. Fully financed and implemented by the Egyptians.
لازم هنتحرك ونتحرك بقوة عشان نخرج من دايرة الفقر اللي احنا موجودين فيها. احنا بنسابق الزمن، احنا عايزين نبني بلدنا، عايزين يبقى في امل حقيقي، مش هنبيع وهم للناس لان احنا متأخرين قوي. طب والله العظيم احنا مستعدين نبيع نفسينا عشان خاطر مصر. التخطيط اللي كان معمول قبل كده كان بيتصور ان احنا ممكن نتكلم على حاجة على امتداد القناة بالكامل، واحنا كان لينا في الدفاع وقتها، انا بقول وانا كنت مسؤول عن ده، وقلت ان ده هيبقى ضد الامن القومي المصري. في المشروعات اللي هي خاصة بالقناة